Okay, welcome to the final power ranking collection episode. This is episode 3 of 3. And today we're going to be wrapping up our power rankings segment with a little bit of a couple underrated teams that we think that the media are sleeping on for this upcoming season. And I
There
think
are
the
mul-
picks,
there are multiple.
and I think there are a couple. I think we have a really good selection for you today. So thanks again for tuning in and kick back, maybe crack open a cold one and enjoy.
I'll drink to that.
Go ahead.
Then I'll drink another one for the media being stupid.
Fuck the media.
Although we're technically the media, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. Fuck.
Media's great.
Yeah, we
I love
suck.
the
We
media.
suck. We suck
Yeah,
anyways. But that's
I love the media. They're awesome.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
really do their job well.
Yeah, that was a very
And-
quick.
Yeah,
quick
and let me
transition.
talk about another team that I think does their job very well, and that is the Redskins front seven. You look at Chase Young. No matter what team he goes to, he's going to be a game changer. Unbelievable.
Mhm.
And yet, he's going to a team that already has Deron Payne and Montez Sweat up front, and Jonathan Allen, and Ryan Kerrigan, and Thomas Davis. And you're telling me that this team is ranked at number 31, often number 32 in the league?
That's me.
And you're telling me that they have Landon Collins in the secondary and Kendall Fuller, and this defense that's arguably top 10 in the NFL, maybe like low top 10, is the worst team in the league. You're telling me that? I don't buy it. I'm sorry. I don't buy it. I don't like the Redskins. I'm just going to come out and say it. I don't like the Redskins as a team, but that front seven, good luck running on that team. That's nasty. That's fucking nasty. Good luck holding the ball for more than 2.5 seconds. Carson Wentz will probably die when he plays this team twice a year. Dak Prescott will probably demand $20 million more per year.
Okay, let's not even talk about Dak.
And it's a good thing Eli Manning retired. It's a good thing Eli Manning retired because he would also die. Let's see how Daniel Jones does. I understand why some people have them ranked low because their offense really lacks a punch. And honestly, it's really boring. Their offense looks really boring. The only player I trust on their offense is Brandon Sheriff, their right guard. He's really good. But aside from that, Terry McLaurin had a really good rookie season. Let's see if he can duplicate it. Same with Steven Sims Jr. Dwayne Haskins, I think, has a decent amount of upside considering he had a rough first year. But they brought in Wes Schweitzer to shore up the offensive line. So he's got a bit more time. And, I think he still has – and Jordan Reed will probably have time to get better. Vernon Davis is still there. Their offense will be boring. But if Dwayne Haskins takes a jump this season – in the chance that he does, their defense is good enough to help them stay in and win games. And I don't think there's much. I think they're better than the Detroit Lions. I think they're better than the Miami Dolphins. I think they're better than the New York Jets. And I personally think they're better than the Cincinnati Bengals. I just don't understand why they're ranked last in the league with a defense that good. That's my thing.
So let me speak on that as someone who ranked the Redskins 32nd overall in the league. Defense, you're completely spot on. Despite having one of the worst, I won't say probably. I think they have the worst offense in the league, and I think that says a lot. Saying if you look at some of the teams that are around them, their defense is probably top 10. Maybe even top 5. If not top 5, at least top 10. But the offense is just way too underwhelming for me. Like we're talking about literally like you're getting two polar opposites with an elite defense and an offense that literally sucks. And Dwayne Haskins still has a lot of upside since being drafted 2 years ago after having a really rough year last year with Jay Gruden. but I'll say this: I do think they have a bit of upside. Dwayne Haskins obviously is as I just mentioned, he has a lot of upside. I think he has potential to become a really good quarterback in the league. If Darius Juice can stay healthy, I think that could be a really good piece to their running core. Um, but
His name's Darius
no,
Geis.
but like, guys, damn it. Oh,
He's really good
um,
though. You're absolutely right. He's so good. He
yeah,
just can't stay healthy. He can't stay healthy, but he's so good.
Juice. No, I'm calling him Juice Boy. I don't even care.
Yeah, him and Leonard
Um,
Fournette at LSU was the nastiest backfield I've seen in a long time.
like, one thing I will say is that Geis had a couple of really bad knee injuries last year, tearing his meniscus and then later spraining his MCL, which is I think it was MCL. I think it was MCL. But anyways, um, I think that the Redskins do have some upside, not a lot, and I just think with some of the additions that some of the other teams made, that put some of the basement teams ahead of them, and even the teams that aren't that I put around them, like the Lions, the Jets. They could have been anywhere near there. I just the offense was just a bit more underwhelming to me. And the other thing, just quickly before I move on, is the other teams that are around them kind of have a bit more established. I won't say established, but they have kind of what you're getting at quarterback. So like the Lions have Matt Stafford, who's obviously, in my opinion, probably one of the most underappreciated, underrated quarterbacks in the league. And I don't think that's a question. Tua has a lot of upside. If he plays, if he probably won't play this year, but even Ryan Fitzmagic's still pretty. And then Sam Darnold. Anyways, so uh, I just think there's the Redskins very well could may not have been very well not be the worst team on the list, but I just had a really hard time kind of closing out my list with the bottom feeders.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay, I see where you're coming from, but when you talk about establishment down below, I
Mm-hmm.
think the reason a lot of these teams are so low is because there's no establishment with guys like Joe Burrow and Tua and Sam
Yeah.
Darnold. They just don't seem to establish themselves that well, and I don't think Dwayne Haskins is any different from those guys. I think he has about as much
Mm-hmm.
upside as they do. He was the second-ranked quarterback in the draft class last year. So I think he has a lot of potential, and sure, he doesn't have the greatest targets to throw to right now, but
Mm-hmm.
I think they clearly, if they didn't draft a wide receiver in a class like this, they clearly have faith in the guys that they have right now, and maybe their guys take a jump. I think that's absolutely possible. And if we're talking about establishment, bringing in a coach like Ron Rivera, who's won a Super Bowl or come very close to winning a Super Bowl, I think that's
that was
absolutely.
Steal. Yeah.
I agree. I think that's something you have to take into consideration, and having having a stable guy like Ron Rivera in to help Dwayne Haskins, I think should help a lot.
Yep. And again,
oh, what was that?
Yeah, I remember when I had my first beer.
I'm like 4 or 5 beers in. Let's just excuse me not being able to drink.
It's a 4. Okay, good. I'm
good. Let's go.
All right. So let's talk about a team that I wanted to quickly talk about, and this is literally the complete opposite of where teams had them last year, and that is the Max's favorite team ever, the Cleveland Browns. So the Cleveland Browns have, I don't know. This has to be weird for the Browns last year after being coronated as like the as the Super Bowl champions last year before even playing a game. But the average pick for the Browns this year was like around 20, round pick 19, round pick 20, and I think that's actually for the media. I think it's actually a bit low because I had them at 20, so I had them with the media, but I'm surprised a lot of teams didn't have them higher. Just look at that defense. That defense is it's not great, but it's still pretty good. And that offense is, on paper, it's lethal. So you have OBJ, Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, and Kareem Hunt. I think a full season of Kareem Hunt is going to do wonders for that offense. You have a 1-2 punch at running back of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Baker Mayfield is going to be coming back, and sorry, he's coming back for another year. And I think we're probably going to be getting something similar to his rookie season Baker Mayfield than we are sophomore season. Kevin Stefanski's a highly talented offensive-minded head coach. After being the OC of the Vikings, who completely turned that Vikings offense around and did a really good job with them. So I just think overall the Browns have a really high upside, and I'm kind of surprised the media didn't put them higher, despite all the resources and stuff they have access to. But again, I guess I'll believe it when I see it. But I just think this is a team that could potentially just destroy a lot of teams coming into the season.
Yeah, they're not the new kids on the block. That's why they're not getting hype. They were the new kids on the block last year. They got all the hype. They didn't. Yeah, they didn't come to it, and the media's punishing them for not living up to the hype. Yep. So that's kind of where that is. I had them at 18th. I think they're better than the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm very low on the Steelers, but I'm very hesitant to be low on the Browns. The Browns that kicked the Ravens' ass in Week 4 last year. Which I'm not happy. That was not a good game. That big Nick Chubb run, I was so deflated after I saw that. And speaking of that backfield, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are 2 top 10 running backs in the NFL, talent-wise.
And have both of them.
And they have both of them. And you could very well say the same thing about OBJ and Jarvis Landry. I don't know if Jarvis Landry is a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, but regardless, dude's nasty. He's really good.
Number 2, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's not fair. And even having guys like Rashard Higgins and Antonio Callaway give you options, and bringing in Austin Hooper as a blocking and pass catching tight end, that really helps. Jack Conklin. Conklin was a goalie in the NHL.
Yeah, see now this I keep getting last names mixed up. This is a problem. Yeah. Anyway, so
Ty Conklin was a solid goalie when he got starts, but he was a backup through and through. Yeah. Jack Conklin, on the other hand, is a solid blindside tackle, and bringing in Jedrick Wills also helps with the tackle position because Greg Robinson was not the answer. Greg Robinson was not the answer.
Go watch our bus team. For those of you who are wondering, go watch our bus team, and you can see why Greg Robinson wasn't the answer.
Yeah, I think that's really going to help their offense. And Baker Mayfield's a good player. Yep. I don't think he did throw, I think, 21 interceptions last year, but he still threw more touchdowns. And
he lost his way, and that happens.
Yeah, he's still a good player. And I think with the media off his back, he'll do fine. And that defense still has nice pieces there. Yep. That secondary looks good. Denzel Ward, Grant Delpit, Greedy Williams. That's a nice young secondary. It might be kind of difficult to throw on them, which is a good thing because the Ravens don't throw. It'll be fine. I like the Browns more than I like the Steelers. I can't say I like the Browns because I'm a Ravens fan, but I like them more than a lot of the teams that people have above them.
On paper, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Sure. And moving on, we both had the Chargers at 11.
Okay, yep.
And the average spot for the Los Angeles Chargers was around 22, 23. Yeah. It was 22. So that puts them at 23 in the league. Their highest spot was 17. Their lowest was 28. 28. Someone had them at the 28th. That was also one of the teams that had the Cardinals at 12. And yeah, I'm just thinking you look at that roster. Look at that roster.
Yeah.
The reason why they have them so low is because of the uncertainty at the quarterback position. Fine, they don't like Justin Herbert. They don't like Justin Herbert. They don't like Tyrod Taylor. Fine, but they lost Melvin Gordon, which means that their running game also takes a hit, despite Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson being solid last year. Actually, Eckler was very solid last year. Keenan Allen's there. Mike Williams is there. You have your bona fide route runner and your deep threat. You have Hunter Henry, who is arguably a top 5 tight end in the NFL. He's so good. I had him in a fantasy last year.
Another underrated tight end. Another underrated player for sure.
He was so good. And we didn't talk about David Njoku with the Browns, but he's also really good with Austin Hooper. Those two together, great pair. But going back to the the Chargers bringing in Bulaga and Turner really helps the offensive line. So whoever does start a quarterback will have a little bit of help there. And the defense bringing in Chris Harris Jr. and Linval Joseph, along with Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram and Desmond King, who is a backup, by the way. Desmond King is a backup who would be a starter on any other team, even the Ravens. And, of course, Derwin James, who is one of the best, if not the best he's one of the best free safeties in the NFL. Earl Thomas is still in the NFL, so I can't put him at number one. That team, from head to toe, is amazing, and you're putting them in the league with teams that are going to win like 5, 6, 7 games, and I just don't understand that. I think that team is better than the Broncos and the Raiders, and they will probably beat them. And they're in a snazzy new stadium with a quarterback that isn't going to shoot them in the foot again like Rivers did last year. They'll be fine. I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, so I agree with everything that you just said. This is going to be an unpopular take, but I think the Chargers are actually going to challenge the Chiefs for the division next year. And I don't really think that's an unpopular take. On paper, the Chiefs are really good, and I think on paper the Chargers are really good. I would hope for a lot of the hate for the Chargers coming from the media perspective is we don't really know when Justin Herbert's going to take over for Tyrod Taylor, because I guess the Chargers have said that Tyrod Taylor is going to start the season as a starting quarterback. That's fine, I get it, whatever. But if they put Justin Herbert in at like week 3 or week 4, I think they're still going to be able to pull out a lot of wins, just because, just like you mentioned, they got Mike Williams, they have Keenan Allen, they have like a lot of these they have a lot of elite players on offense. Not to mention their defense is still great, like being led by Nick Bosa, and like again, like I just think the Chargers are a better team that's being ridiculously slept on, and that way both things are being ridiculously slept on, and I think they should have a lot of upside once Justin Herbert takes over.
Yeah, well, they might as well be led by Nick Bosa because Joey Bosa is basically the same player. But yeah, no, I absolutely agree with what you're saying, and I think the Chargers will be fine. I think the games with the Chiefs will be competitive, but in terms of competing with the Chiefs for the division lead, I don't know about that. But it's very possible. The Chargers do have a last place schedule, which will really help them. They get to play the Dolphins. They get to play the Bengals. They get to play those last place teams in the AFC, and that will really help them. And the last team we want to talk about is the one that I think is the most egregious party foul here. Is that the Jacksonville Jaguars are ranked 32nd by 8 of the 10 teams or 8 of the 10 lists that we have here. And I think that's really dumb because they have a top 3 defense in the NFL. Top 5, fine. Top 3, I think. Just let me list some of the pieces that they have on defense. So up front, they have Malik Jackson and Josh Allen and Yannick Ngakoue that are still there. Yeah, their linebackers are newly minted Joe Schobert from the Browns, Miles Jack, and the newly drafted Clavon Chason. Those are the linebackers. Sure. And in their secondary, which used to be elite with Jalen Ramsey, A.J. Boye, Barry Church, Sean Gibson, and Aaron Colvin, they now have DJ Hayden, Rashawn Melvin, and what's his name? The guy they drafted, C.J. Henderson, who's there. So when you talk about the Jaguars being a bad team, you're talking about Yannick Ngakoue wanting out and Leonard Fournette being on the trading block, which is what a lot of them talked about. But what you're forgetting is this team is so good at drafting for value, and their defense, they basically rebuilt one of the best defenses I've ever seen within 2 years. They completely rebuilt them with their draft picks, with their good drafting and their moves. I won't say their secondary is as good because DJ Hayden and Rashawn Melvin are not as good as the guys that they had before. But man, they for what they had and what they had to work with, they did a really good job in rebuilding that defense. Mm-hmm. And it's still top 10 in the NFL. I wouldn't say maybe even top 5. And when you look at their offense, it's not as stagnant as it was last year because you bring in Laviska Shenault to keep the box open for Leonard Fournette to run. And your offensive line is better now because Jawan Taylor now has another year to develop as your blindside tackle. And Gardner Minshew now has a year as the starter. So I think this offense isn't as bad as people say it's going to be. Gardner Minshew's fine. He's not a game changer. He's kind of like a game manager that's very mobile. Like I don't know how Teddy Bridgewater, I guess, would be a good example. He's not as good as Teddy, but he's close to that. And he's a little more mobile than Teddy is, which will really help. And having Leonard Fournette and now Chris Johnson coming in and DJ Chark developing really well. Like I wouldn't say the offense I won't say the offense isn't contingent on Gardner Minshew's play because Gardner Minshew will have a large impact on how they play. But this offense has a lot more options than it did last year. And I think people are thinking in the past last year for a team that by all metrics was close with a lot of good teams. And they have a tough division, which is true. But they do have a fourth place schedule, which will really help them. So I don't agree with them being last place. I think they're better than every team in the bottom, like the Redskins and the Bengals and the Panthers and the Lions and the Giants and the Jets and the Dolphins. And I honestly think they're on par, if not better than the Las Vegas Raiders.
So just quickly to touch on the Jags, the Jaguars have an elite defense, no question about it. Top 5, top 10 defense in the league. No, just with some of the pieces you pointed out. But the main reason that I kind of didn't really put them higher is just that defense is it's a bit underwhelming. I'm not sold on Gardner Minshew as a starting quarterback in really any capacity. I mean, he's obviously above backup level, but I wouldn't. He still has to kind of prove himself as a starting quarterback. I thought the comparison to Teddy Bridgewater is the same. Was a really good comparison, which is also why I'm not 100% sold on Teddy Bridgewater. And I mean Leonard Fournette's really good. I think he's one of the most underrated running backs in the league. This guy's fast. He can move. That guy can move with the ball. But just other than that, there's not a lot there. And obviously more pieces are gonna come with time as they kind of have more opportunities to draft players and potentially sign players in free agency, which is normal. But again, I just think right around or re-rank them, like around the 24, 25, 26 area, is exactly where they should be, or is approximately where they should be, just given the competitiveness of the teams around them.
I agree. I think having them around where the Giants and the Raiders are is a very good place to put them.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. As a Raiders fan, I personally think the Raiders are a bit better than the Jags. Just on paper, but again, that could obviously change. But yeah, like the teams around them I think are right there with the Jaguars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I see that.
I'm also biased, so keep that in mind.
Yeah, in terms of Gardner Minshew as a starting quarterback, I don't think we've seen the best of Gardner Minshew yet. I think having that experience and playing under Nick Foles for a bit last year, I think will really help. And I think this year he'll show that he'll kind of figure out what kind of a quarterback he wants to be and what kind of quarterback he is. And I'm not saying he'll beat Teddy Bridgewater because Teddy Bridgewater played very well as a starter. But
yes, sir.
I don't think he'll be as bad as people think he's going to be because let's be honest, 8 out of the 10 thought he was going to be the Jaguars would be the worst team in the league. One of the two that didn't had them at 31, and the other one had them at 30. So not a lot of hype for the Jacksonville Jaguars in Duval County. But I look at their roster and I think there's no reason why this team is the worst team in the league. Besides the media de-hyping them because of all the turmoil that's happened in their organization over the last few years. If they have to make a change midseason, they make a change midseason. Fine. But if you look at the coaches that they have right now, they're competent. And if you look at the players, they're better than competent. So I don't think this is a last place team.
Yeah, I think you're completely on the money with that. with that defense alone, like I think they're a lot better than a lot of the teams that are supposed to be near the bottom. Like the Jets by themselves, like I don't know how you can really put the Jaguars over the Jaguars underneath the Jets.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more about that. I remember saying in an earlier episode that I think the Jaguars can contend for that AFC South title, which will be very difficult for them because the Titans, Colts, and Texans are very good teams. But it's not impossible. I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah. In hindsight, I think I mentioned this before, but one of the things I do kind of wish I put the Jets a bit lower because I put them at 26, and a lot of that was contingent on Sam Darnold. But again, like so, I had the Jets at 26 and the Jaguars at 27. But looking back on it, I don't think there's any question the Jaguars are going to be probably between the Giants, Panthers, Bengals, Jets, Dolphins, Redskins, and Lions. I think there's a very good chance that the Jaguars are on top of all of them, just on that defense alone.
Yeah, they were on top of all of them last year, despite being worse on offense. So they're a better team now than they were last year. Yeah, they were a worse team last year, and they were on roughly the same level as teams like the Cleveland Browns. So, I think the media is just kind of down on them a bit, but we'll see how they do. I think they'll be fine.
It'll be a very interesting to see how this plays out, how each team plays out. But yeah, I agree with you 100% for sure on all the things you said about the Jaguars.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess that's all we have prepared for this episode.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, this kind of wraps up our power rankings collection of videos, but
these were just a collection of the most egregious things that we saw from the media and their lists. Things that we found to be the most ridiculous. But there are other little things that were obviously a little weird to see.
Yep.
Like someone ranking the Texans at 25th. That's ridiculous.
Yep. That's the media narrative of what's Bill O'Brien doing. But anyways, maybe we'll get into another episode. So thanks for sticking with us for the well, if you made it this far, thanks for sticking with us through the power rankings collection, and we'll see you when we record our next episode, which I think it'll be a lot of fun as always.
Yeah, any comments that you have about our videos, just put them in the comments. Anything you have to say about it, feel free to let us know. We like we said last episode, we love talking about football. We love talking to people about this, and we're totally open to having a dialogue about this. Absolutely.
We have nothing better to do in quarantine, man. Just help us talk about football.
Please, we're not close to ending it, but let's be honest, anything can change.
Yeah.
Especially with him being a Raiders fan.
Yeah.
So he's been on the edge for a while.
Yeah, that was we almost made the playoffs last year. That's what really broke my heart.
Yeah. Hopefully they make it this year.
They won't.
Yeah, and with that, we'll sign off.
Yeah. So, anyways,
for sticking with us for a really fun session of episodes.
Yep. So see you next time.
Yep.
And just enjoy. See ya.